Starting time. Welcome to our live discussion for Sunday today. We are talking about women on the internet and in entertainment and how it's kind of a really rough thing to have to deal with. So you're used to me being a bigger part of these discussions because I am a white, straight, cis male. Probably not a whole lot out of me today, although there has been the suggestion that maybe I mansplain at the end of every segment. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. But let's take a look at our panel who is here to talk about this today. I'm going to start, of course, with my wife, Rene Bordelon.
Oh, I almost unplugged myself. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. I am Rene, and I will be talking on the panel. I don't really have anything to say. I'm an actress, a performer, and I have interacted with people on the internet, and that is my experience that I will be bringing to you. Thank you.
Jessica Hayes, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica. I'm also a stage actress, once musical theater, now leaning more towards comedian. For many reasons that we're going to talk about today. So I'm very excited to dig in.
And now I want to introduce to our first time with us, Miss Amy Schloerb. Amy, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Schloerb. I am an actress also and a comedian, and I have a comedy web series called Schloerbits that I do that I put out on the internet. So far, I haven't been trolled by a whole lot of people. Occasionally, people say not funny, but I don't really count that really as trolling because they're entitled to their opinion. So yeah, I'm also a mom. So I thought that could be an interesting thing to throw into this whole mix about women in the industry and stuff like that. So that's where I come from.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amy. So to get the ball rolling, being a woman in entertainment in general, I'd kind of like to start there because that is the longer running kind of thing. If anybody has ever taken a sociology class or has ever paid attention to anything at all, then it's very clear that here in America and in a majority of the world that consumes American entertainment, it's a pretty patriarchal society. And people like me tend to do better than people with boobs and vaginas. But for you in particular, as our panel, what experiences have you guys had that, what's been your experience just kind of getting started in the entertainment industry in general?
I've got a story. I started doing stage stuff from a very young age. My first big show was when I was 10 years old. And I hadn't really realized that I was a larger kid yet, but I was bigger than other people my own age. And the thing that stuck with me was how I was treated differently because I was large, because I stuck out a lot. And the specific memory was in the costuming department. There was all these children, and then there was me, and I had to try on this costume. And I was the one that was in the room for 45 minutes because none of the children's costumes fit my body. And the director said in front of all of the kids, you know what, can you just lose 10 pounds before this show opens? I was in 5th grade. And so I was already being sort of segregated because of my size as a child. And I didn't make any friends in that show for that reason. So it started early.
I'm really sad that happened to you. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
I didn't have anything too much from the industry as a kid. I started out in gymnastics, and I went to dance, and then kind of added singing and acting in, and I actually got more pressure from my family about losing weight if I wanted to dance and perform than I did from my instructors, at least directly. I'm trying to think, maybe sometimes there were little comments, but most of the time they were kind of just okay with whatever we were. And there weren't comments about that. I mean, we all kind of across the board as dancers get that suck in, especially when you're doing like your team pictures before competitions or whatever. But none of that really stood out. But when I was older and acting and trying to do more stuff in Hollywood and everything, I had an agent who gave me a book on modeling, and I'm 5'3" for people who don't know. And so I was never going to be like a high fashion model or anything, but she wanted to use me for print stuff. She never told me to lose weight. At the time, I was a pretty nice, tight little size. I was about 19 and I had no real weight issue, although I, in my head, thought that I could stand to lose a few pounds, because you always feel that way when you're a woman in this industry, really. I think most of us do anyway. But no one really said anything to me. But there was a section in the book about losing weight, and they had one of those old school like insurance forms where or charts where it's like height and weight and what you're supposed to weigh. And it was like, I don't even want to say it because I don't want to put in anybody else's head. But I was like, oh, well, I'm this tall, so I should weigh this amount of pounds, and I'm not that, so I'm going to lose 10 pounds or so. And I did, and it was kind of easy to lose the weight at that point in time in my life, but it was really hard to maintain it. And I really felt like it was like trying to keep a beach ball underwater. And like I could do it, but it took like all my concentration, and I couldn't do anything fun ever. And dating, I couldn't really go on dates because like you can't eat in restaurants, you can't do, like everything was like, And eventually that just kind of exploded. And then I had an eating disorder. And then there was like all this whole thing. And a couple years later, I had gained a lot of weight. I was still dealing with an eating disorder though. And I had been signed up with this one agency to do not really just background work, but mostly like featured background work. And they hadn't called me in like a year, and I was kind of over it. And out of the blue, they called me that someone had seen my headshots and they wanted to use me for something. And she wanted to just check my measurements. And I was like, oh, well, I've gained a lot of weight. Like, I really don't know if they're going to want me if this is what they're going for. And she's like, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. Just tell me what your measurements are. And when I told her my measurements from present time at that point versus what I was when I was holding that beach ball under the water was a lot different. And she was like, and it was like humiliating for me to even admit this to her. But her reaction was, oh my gosh, what happened? Did you have a baby or something? And I was like, nope, just got fat. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Gained some weight. You can take me out of the running for this ridiculous featured part, which was topless, by the way, also. You wouldn't have seen my boobs. It was topless from behind. But like, anyway, that's a whole other story. But so I never got called from them again. I'm sure they were like, take this fatty out of contention. But, you know, it was the first time that I knew it existed. It was the first time that happened to me personally, and knew that, yeah, this is going to be something I'm going to have to deal with if I want to continue down this path.
I would say for me, I don't know, from a pretty early age, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be like, I guess, the ingenue and the sort of the star, I guess. I kind of knew that I was a little quirkier, and my ears kind of stick out, which is why I put my hair in front of them. Like, they're pretty big.
They're adorable.
I agree.
But like, you know, kids in school could tease you and called me Dumbo and things like that. So, and like my teeth were kind of crooked and all these kinds of things. So I was kind of never, I don't know, I was never too concerned about, I was never too concerned about what my body looked like. I mean, I still am, definitely. And I definitely, the time after having the baby and everything, when I would go into auditions and callbacks and they'd check your sizes and things, I'd be like, well, yeah, these are right, but I just had a baby, so maybe add like a couple inches here or there, possibly. I'm not sure, maybe, whatever. Love Amy. So, it is definitely still a thing. But I've also seen that, especially the trajectory that my career has taken, there's a lot more opportunity, I would say, for like real casting and real looking women, and they kind of want that at this point. And so I don't really feel a pressure anymore to be a certain size or like, I would say. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think there is more opportunity now these days. I mean, I'm older than you, and this was way older than Jessica. But I mean, I think there's more opportunity now than there was back in the day, and I think I think that that's a good thing. I think that's obviously a good thing for all of us. So I would agree with that. And I think there's less pressure. I think the pressure I put that is on me now is all put on by myself. Like it's all from me.
Yeah.
More than anyone else at this point in time.
No, I would agree. I would say mine is as well, that it's to feel good in my body. And I know that I feel better in my body at a certain weight and at a certain, I mean, cause I'm 5 feet tall. So I mean, by Hollywood standards, I should probably weigh 75 pounds. But I don't. And so it's, yeah, I don't know. It's just, because I was telling Curtis when we were kind of thinking about doing this discussion that I had seen Keeping Up with the Joneses, and I'm watching this and I'm watching the lead in it, Elsa Fisher, and I'm going, my God, like even the like quirky, you know, being with Zach Galifianakis' wife has to be gorgeous, and like the long flowing locks and all this stuff. And my husband pointed out, you know, well, actually she has made kind of a career of being the quirky, you know,
but
the funny girl.
Stunning.
But she's stunning.
It's like the Zoe Deschanel, you know, kind of. Yeah. Like she's freaking gorgeous and 110
so quirky,
pounds.
that perfect looking.
Yeah,
woman.
she's just like I'm so quirky.
Exactly. And so like at the same time as I say like, oh no, it's fine for me to be whatever size I am and all these kinds of things, I'm sitting here going, well, actually, is that just me saying that to make myself feel better, or is that an actual, like, because I actually do kind of buy into, you know, having to stay a certain, wait, sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you guys can hear that. You know, I do kind of buy into trying to make myself, you know, stay, you know, I don't eat whatever I want and and things, because you do want to look good on camera. I mean, you do end up feeling like you don't look great if you see playback of yourself, and
oh, that's the worst.
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel ya. Do you want to talk more about the actual well, about like, well, I thought all of us women could talk about like any kind of trolling behavior, or if they've noticed certain behavior towards them. Like, for example, just last week, my dear friend posted a video that I had made a few years back. And I talked about this briefly in our last week's session. So anyone who's watching this from last week, yes, I'm going to retell the story. I posted the video, and she had posted it. I made it a few years ago. She reposted it recently. It was very nice of her to do that. She has a very large following of people, and she uses her personal page as her public page. She's also an actress. She's got a lot of like fan types and stuff. So she had a couple people had commented on it that they liked it. They were complete strangers to me. It made me feel very good. And I interacted with one of them. And the next day I had 2 friend requests that were my only mutual friend was her. And one of them was the man that I had interacted with. And he was very pleasant to interact with, but I still don't know him. My personal page, unlike hers, is my personal page. I have a public page that I use for that sort of stuff. I know that on Facebook, people do not like the public pages as much. I get it, but I have chosen to go that route anyway. I explained that to this man, and he was happy to like my public page and to leave me alone on my private page, and he was fine with it. The other friend request I had not interacted with at all, and he didn't have like a picture or anything like that, and knew nothing about this man. And so there was just no way in hell I was going to accept this stranger on my page where I post pictures of like my family and my friends' kids and my nieces and nephews, and you know.
Yeah.
So I sent the same very nice response to him. Thank you for your interest, but I don't accept personal or strangers on my personal page. I do have a public page. This is where it is if you'd like to follow. Thank you so much. That's that. And his response to me was, fuck you. And it took me, now to be fair, in terms of trolling, this is very small. Like it could have been so much worse. I have seen people get even like tirades at women who tell them, no, thank you, I can't friend you on this thing, or I'm not going to interact with you. And it might have gotten that way if I'd responded to that, but I chose not to, and I just blocked him, and that was the end. But it really kind of shook me, because it was the first time that something like that had happened, where it was like, I owe you nothing, and yet I got this really like mean, hostile response to a very nice thing that, I mean, if you didn't want to like my public page, you just don't have to like it, and you could just not respond and just leave me alone. You know, there was no way to say, no reason at all to say, fuck you for that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking, because, you know, we hear that, you know, oh, this is happening in the world, this is happening. But when it really happens to you directly, it's of course a stronger effect. And it really was like, I said, thank you, but no, thank you. And he could not be told no, thank you from a woman. Like, I talked about it with Curtis, and he was like, I get people requesting me all the time, and I don't accept them. And I never get a response like this. Like, I've never been told to fuck you or fuck up. And I've never had anyone yell at me or call me a bitch, or, you know, like, no one gets mad at men when they do this. And I'm not saying it never happens. I'm sure that men get horrible responses from women as well on
I'm
online.
going to tell you right now.
But
It never happens.
But I don't think it happens, if it does happen at all, to the extent that it happens to women. Like, I have seen documented so many other women have gone through so much worse, where men are calling them, you know, whores and sluts and names, and just going on and on and on in these really long, awful, mean messages. And, you know, one woman, she put the guy on blast and like publicly posted who he was and like his messages. And he like flipped out and just but he never, the worst part of the whole thing was that he never seemed, she kept saying, yes, but you said all these horrible things it was another woman on her behalf, kind of a thing, saying but she owed you nothing, and you kept doing this, and you don't understand how you were threatening her, and you were saying these things. And so, yeah, you know, and he never owned up to his part in that. He felt victimized because people now were sending him awful messages. And he was like, how dare you do this to me? And like, now my parents have seen it, and my sister, and they were like, but you did this, you said these things. And he never like apologized, and he wanted, you know, and it was just, could not understand the irony of it at all. Or, you know, like, yeah, this is what it feels like when strangers yell at you for stupid things, and you actually deserved it. You know, you were doing terrible things.
Right.
And there's another woman that on Twitter and Instagram, she reposts guys who slut shame women if they post like half naked pictures, and like the guys will be like, no one wants to see that, and we don't want to see these half naked women on our feed. But then they'll post like a celebrity half naked picture and be like, she's so awesome or whatever, and she'll screen grab their comments and then what they post. Or more often than that is their half naked pictures of them like in like with no shirt and trying to be sexy and doing all this stuff, and how there's this horrible double standard. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm going to try and find her. I forget what she's called, but I'm going to try and find it on here. But yeah, it's great, because there is so much of that kind of double standard of like, I can yell at you, or I can tell you no because you're disgusting, and I would never be interested in someone like you. But if a woman says no, it's like this horrible assault on their masculinity. I don't know. It's very strange, you know.
Well, it's like the internet has become the bar. Because, you know, I would go to, I remember one time being up at a wine tasting in Solvang, and my friend and I are just hanging out. We're just having our own, you know, girls' weekend or whatever. And this guy, you know, starts talking to us and you know, wants to, then it's like, oh, where are you guys going later? And what are you doing? And all this kind of stuff. And we're like, well, you know, we're not really, like, it's been very nice to talk to you, but we're just not interested. We're hanging out together, but you know, you have a good time and we'll have our own good time. And he's like, oh, you know, fuck you guys. Like, you girls, you always want a nice guy, but you don't actually want a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. You don't want this. You don't actually want a nice guy. And I'm like, no, it's just that we just don't want this right now. Like, maybe if we'd met under a different circle, I don't know, but like, don't go throwing it at us. And also, the quickest way to get us to go away is to be like, oh, you're being mean to me, and I'm a nice guy. And I'm like, yeah, but just go away. Like,
my favorite sentence ever is, fuck you, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Clearly. Yeah, I wanted to respond to that guy that said the fuck you to me. I was gonna be like, well, thank you for proving that I was absolutely correct in not accepting you on my page.
This doesn't mean
You made my point.
This doesn't really count in our conversation much, but I'm curious, how did you respond to him? Because, you know, like I'll get a friend request and then if I don't know the person, because sometimes we'll have no mutual friends and I just ignore it. Like I don't like send them a message or anything.
Oh yeah. 99% of the time, that's what I do. I just delete or I just leave it there forever and just or something. But,
occasionally I have people who like I've met them for like 2 seconds at an audition and then they friend me and I'm like,
not yet. Yeah.
I don't know you.
And you don't owe them a message.
Mutual friends. And I'm like, oh, well.
The reason I did was the only reason I did was because my friend who was the mutual friend in common had posted my video, and the first guy that was very nice had really liked my stuff and he was really complimentary and he was like hoping that I would do more. And so I was like, if you want to follow these things, the public page is the place to do that.
Right.
You know, like that will let you have access to those things.
Right.
So I wrote a very like not super long, but like it was kind of like, hey, thank you for your interest, because we had a conversation, you know, on her page on the comments. I was like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, no, it was really great. And it kind of went on for a little bit. So I wasn't surprised when he friended me because we'd had an interaction.
Yeah.
And so I felt like because I had just talked with him there, it would seem rude to just deny him. And I wanted to let him know that I do have this other page and I would rather you go there, because that's not immediately something that people apparently pull up when they pull up my, like, you know, he just clicked on me and friend request me. So I wanted to just let him know that that was available. And so I explained very nicely, like I keep my personal page private, and it was probably more explanation than was necessary. But I think too, as women, I do this a lot, and I'll come back around to this in a second, but I explain a lot because I'm hoping to avoid the fuck you or the whatever, or I'm like, but I have reasons and they're logical and they make sense. And any reasonable person would see my reasons and say, oh, of course that makes sense. You're a woman and you've got a lot of family and friends that you may not want exposed to random strangers who are maybe possibly jerking off to you on the internet, you know, like that makes sense, you know, like this isn't a public forum for you. Because many actresses do use their regular page as a very public page. Well, that's fine. I just am not that person.
Right.
So I responded to him for that reason. And the only reason that I responded the same way to the other guy, even though I hadn't interacted with him, was because I assumed, since it was right after she posted that video, that it was because he also thought the video was cool or liked the way it looked. I don't know, whatever. He's obviously a douchebag. But for whatever reason, I thought it was because of that. And I thought I would give him that same kind of a consideration of, you know, if you really do want to follow my stuff, this is the place to do it, and give him that option of the public page. Most of the time, if they're just friending me out of nowhere with like no reason to have, you know, then I'll just delete it because I assume it's just a creepy person, you know, because why would you friend someone that you've had no interaction with at all and don't know personally anyway, you know? Right. So I probably should have just deleted that guy since I hadn't had an interaction with him. It was just following on the heels of that other situation, you know, that was what made it different. But along those lines, I explain too much. And my friends have always told me this, that it doesn't matter. And sometimes it seems to make it worse. I don't know how that, I'm sure, Jessica, I feel like you can understand that a lot.
Absolutely.
Like you're like, no, I really want to explain to you where I'm coming from on this. And they never actually understand. And everything you say just digs you deeper into some hole of misunderstanding. And they just keep twisting it more and more. And you're like, I don't know what happened. I just tried to say this, like literally. And
and being surrounded by theater people all the time, they're usually very loud. And so I tend to be this guy. I'm like, I'm just gonna let you all do this. And then I'll find somebody like, you know, like a Curtis, for example, where I can just be like, I just need to vent for like 20 minutes. Like, you know, or, to be honest, that's more of my MO, I guess.
Yeah. So my friends all pointed out, like, all you have to say, if you are going to respond at all, is I don't accept strangers on my personal page. Here's my public page. That's it. Like, you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to justify it. But I
know it's a complete sentence.
You know, it just I think we just feel the need to justify because we're like defensively like bracing for this like onslaught of possible bullshit.
Yeah.
Just for saying no, thank you, or for like what will be perceived as some sort of weird rejection in people's minds or something.
Right. At the theater last week, I don't want to go into that whole story again, but we had a big group of really awful people in the theater, and so a lot of our girls were being like touched and grabbed inappropriately, and a lot of them were being asked to like come hang out with these guys after the show, and it was really, really bad. This group of people got escorted out and everything ended up being fine, but the girls, especially the younger girls, were all crying and coming up with reasons why it was their fault. I'm in a short skirt. My boobs are hanging out. Like, of course this is going to happen. It's like, no. You don't have to apologize for their bad behavior. Like, and also you don't have to give reasons as to why you feel unsafe. You don't have to give reasons as to why you're saying, no, they should know better. Like, and the fact that that's so, common is mind-boggling and frustrating.
Oh, Curtis has a question.
Does this affect how you seek out entertainment work? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. When I walk into an audition and there is a panel of men, I get very, very nervous. If there is a woman on there or even a gay man, I automatically feel more relaxed and more like, oh, okay, nobody's I'm not going to be lined up against other women in the same way. Probably why I've been doing the work that I've been doing for as long as I have, because I feel safe there.
I don't think it affects my looking for work particularly, but that's mostly because I just go on the auditions that I get sent. But
well, what if? But I mean, do you ever submit yourself still?
No. Because mostly I'm concentrating on my own content, my own content creation,
as you should.
And because I'm finding that that's a much better place for me, and I'd rather be working on that and not getting paid than like going into like student films and not getting paid. That's kind of where I am. I don't think it particularly affects how I write Schloerbits. I don't think it does. I mean, I don't do a lot. I don't do a lot of political stuff. It's all more sort of personal things and more, what am I trying to say? Like from my own life.
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I
stuff.
think it's very applicable to lots of people. Yeah, it's very, it's not bland. Did you just say it's bland? It's not bland.
Well, I just mean like it's not like
it's not offensive to anyone.
Push the envelope
in the realm buttons or anything.
Yeah, I'm not trying to provoke anything politically or in terms of a gender stereotypes or race or any of that kind of stuff. That's not really where my
neutral is a better word.
Yeah, neutral. It's very neutral in terms of people can love it from all sides.
Sure.
I like the distant Curtis.
One of us has to be muted at all times because we're in the same room, so we echo off each other. So since I'm doing more talking this time than him, he's staying muted so that I can jump in to converse easier. But for me, it does a little, I guess. I like to not submit, like, as I did before we moved. I would still submit myself for things. And it basically, the way it affected me was that I didn't submit myself for things that were like super misogynist right off the bat. like, oh, this looks horrible. Like this, even if I got this awful part and it pays, I don't want to do it and I don't want to promote it and I don't want to talk about it. And these people will probably be a nightmare to work with. Like, and for some reason, especially when I was younger, and I've never been, like you said, Amy, I don't consider myself, like, I was never going to be like the hot girl or like the, like that was never going to be me. I was this short little stocky, like, I was always going to be like the sidekick.
The quirky best friend.
Yeah. But even the crookie best friend can only be like so much overweight usually, you know, I mean, still in this thing, like, but I keep telling Curtis if I should just gain weight and just kind of like really go for that and like make that my niche. But but like, you know, it's not about that. Like I feel I'm mostly this size, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go with it. But, gosh, I almost kind of lost track of my thoughts. I never thought I was gonna be the hot girl to begin with. And so many of the breakdowns were like, girl next door, but she's still smoking hot. Like this is a nurse, but she's hot. Like it was just like, everything was hot. And, you know, we could do a whole segment on how the breakdowns come across and how women characters are described and all of that nightmare. Like she's long and leggy and sexy. And it's just like, then the guy's like, she's deep and yeah. And she's a grandmother. She's a mom, but hot. Like everyone's hot. And, so I never really submitted for those things. And I just would look for these little unicorn things where she was kind of described as an actual human and had more traits going for her than just being hot or height or hair length or boob size or, you know. And to anyone who isn't in this industry, yes, there are times where they're like, she must be leggy. She must be at least 5'5", you know, and whatever. So I never really had that going in. And yet, I remember where I was going with this. I used to get cast and called in for auditions for strippers all the time. Strippers. Very strange. Never understood that. I don't feel like I give off that vibe. I don't think my headshots gave off that vibe. Nothing about me is what I would like look at and go, yeah, this girl, total stripper. But apparently that's what I actually did get cast a couple times on projects that didn't end up getting off the ground. And, the first one was actually not that bad as stripper things go. And the project was kind of neat and the story was kind of neat and I never had to be like naked. So I went with it, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. And, but yeah, lots of weird strippery things or like coming in a bathing suit. And it's like, no. So, Curtis said he has another question. He's going to pop in and ask us.
Oh, okay.
Actually unmuting myself. I'm bringing myself to the forefront. Oh, it's insanity. Okay, so what I'm hearing is kind of a universal feeling about how, just in general, things are still affecting the females of the population, and this has been fascinating just to listen to, especially because I like to consider myself woke on the whole female thing, but the fact that there's still this process that is going through all of your heads. And Amy, like I hear in what you're saying the fact that you found a way to deal with it, but it sounds, but like it's still there. It doesn't seem like even having a very healthy attitude about the whole situation doesn't at all change the situation. It sounds like you've just found ways to deal with the situation so that it's palatable to be able to stay in the industry that you want to be in the first place.
I found a better story to tell myself, basically.
Yeah, right. And that's
reframing this.
Wait, not yet. I don't think my mic is as good as your mic.
Woman.
Exactly, woman. But one of the things that Rene was worried about when we first started talking about this, and even right up until we started, was the fact that this video will now be searchable.
Yep.
And I mean, all I have to say is the word Gamergate, and now I have. And now all of a sudden, there could be trolls that go along with this. And she was very concerned that people would come to this video after the fact, and the comment section may go to the typical YouTube toxicity pretty quickly. Does being a woman with the intention of being in the public eye affect how you interact on the internet in general? I know that Rene has generally talked about like her Facebook page and everything, but the internet is more than Facebook. does that affect how you guys interact, choose to do things and stuff like that?
Yes. I've similar to like what you were saying earlier, though, like I've found a way to navigate around it in a way that works for me, in a way that my narrative becomes a positive thing, because it is something that is always this dormant thing that you just have to learn how to deal with. So for me, on social media, on Instagram and things like that, in trying to be funny and be a comedian, I try to be extremely vulnerable and extremely out there with how I'm feeling and how angry I am, and like, look, I'm not pretty all the time. Like, I'm trying to go more of that route because I feel safer there, and I feel like that is going to present the kind of community that I want to interact with. As far as safety and things like that, there have definitely been times where I want to like do like body positivity promotion stuff. Like, I follow a ton of accounts of women who are like, this is what I look like without Photoshop, like in a bathing suit, and they're like, they put themselves out there, and it's become this thing that's like, it's all about bravery, and like they have thousands of followers, and a part of me is very passionate about that and would like to be a part of that, but I'm terrified to put myself on the internet in, you know, in a bikini or showing my midriff or something, because I don't feel safe.
We are totally going to do that when I come down, and we're going to do that. I think that I agree with a lot of that, because it's true. There's a lot of things, like ideas. This actually goes back to the previous question on does it affect what you look for in the industry. Just Amy, you do a lot of your own stuff, and I have had, and I love the stuff you do. Schloerb is hilarious. Like, I see them, and they're fun, and they're funny, and I think it's really cool that you're doing your thing, you know, like, and for years, Curtis and I have been like, let's do our own things. And then I'll have ideas, and he's like, you should do that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't know. I have this other thing, and I should probably lose like 10 pounds, and I gotta get my hair done, and I just, and I don't do it. But would it really
is magic?
And yeah, I've heard of that. There's also You Are a Badass. There's a lot of these good, great things. Yeah. And the War of Art, and there, yeah, we all of these are great. But it does affect me, the trolling and the idea of troll. Like I said, I haven't had that much because I haven't put out that much, and I am public, and yet no one really knows who I am, so it doesn't matter most of the time. But I kind of like it like that, and I think subconsciously now, for probably this hasn't been around that long, 2 decades, and subconsciously for at least the last decade, since internet stuff has become the thing, there has been this kind of a, how much do you want to risk putting your stuff out there versus like, how badly do you want to put your stuff out there versus dealing with the blowback that you know it's going to get on some level. There's going to be some mean people that are going to see it and feel the need to comment, because there's always these idiots that just can't leave someone alone. They have to say these mean, awful things. And for me, I just couldn't handle it. I was dealing with too many other stressful, toxic things in my life, I think. And I'd like to think I'm a pretty strong person, and I have opinions, and people like my opinions. And whenever I have blogged, and the random 3 people who have read them, they liked them, and it meant something to them. And Curtis is like, people like your stuff, you should do more. And I feel good about that, but I'm terrified to put stuff out there. Not for my personal safety so much, although that is something, because there are women who get stalked, and because people really love them too much, or because they hate them so much, so there is that, but it's mostly just that I don't want to deal with it at all. I don't want to have a barrage of awful people constantly, because up until very recently, it was very hard for me to not engage. I felt like if I just talk to these people, if I just explain, and
reason with them,
you can't talk to morons and crazy people, like you can't. And some of them aren't even crazy or morons in real life. In real life, they would be totally like that dude that you talk to when you go to the store. But behind a computer screen, they're a freaking monster. And that in itself is really terrible and scary to, because I don't know that men realize how terrifying it is. That it's not you just, I've heard men, I read an article once about a woman who found out that her husband was trolling people and like in the worst way, like threatening violence, like saying the worst awful things to these people. And she found out, and she asked him, like, why do you, because he was not that guy in real life. And she was like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? What makes you do this? And he was like, I get really frustrated at work, and then there's this, and there's that, and I'm just really stressed about this at home, and this is just how I take it out, and I feel better, and it makes me feel better. And I cannot understand that mentality at all. I just can't. But if that's something that's happening with him, then you have to figure it's happening with other men who are doing this, because there's a lot of terrible trolls out there. And like when several people, when they call them out on it, or they send the dick pic that someone sent to them, to their mom, they're like, this isn't the person I know. And that person gets really embarrassed, and they're like, no, I'm not like that in real life. I would never do that in person. So, there's that whole psychology of people being different behind the computer. And I just don't understand that. But apparently it's a thing. And I don't think that they understand how scary that is, and how, I do think, though, that there is a deep-seated thing that probably feeds into that, of wanting to shut someone down who's doing something that they love, or that if someone seems too happy with their lives, or confident enough to put themselves out there, and they want to shut that down because they're not, or something. Maybe it has something to do with that.
Very insecure, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that actually has stopped me probably more than anything else, is just the fear of that, of being trolled by people, because I know that the more I put out there, and the bigger anything should become, the more I have to deal with that. And I haven't, I've always said, I don't ever really want to be famous. I just want to do the things I love. And I don't mind being known to a point. And of course, being public, you reach more people that you can help with something or inspire by something. And that's always kind of under why we want to do what we do. Without an audience, what are we doing? But at the same time, yeah, I just never wanted to be under that kind of microscope.
Rene,
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to do, and going back to what we were talking about before, it's like we have to do all this inner work all the time. Like there's already all of this maintenance of, maintaining that level of self-love and all that kind of stuff. So having it thrown out at you from like an outside source, it's like, I don't want to do that kind of work.
It's just too much. Yeah.
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 No, I agree. I think that from both of you, I think the thing that came up for me was that I keep all of my Facebook things private, like my personal page and things like that. And then Schloerbits is its own, like, web series type page, like fan page. And then that's public. And so that will post things, and like pictures that I put out on Instagram of like my family and things like that stays private. And so I keep that all kind of protected, or I try to, at least. And I try to keep like a wall between these things, so that I've come up with bits that would include my baby. And then I've been like, you know what? Nope, just not going to go there. Because I don't want to put him out there. I don't want it, I don't get a ton of views or anything. And it's interesting what you say, Rene, about like you're public, but you're not known. Like I feel that way too, that like Schloerb, it's public. I mean, anybody could find it that wants to find it, but it's not particularly known at this point. If it becomes known, and I want that protection from, in terms of personal stuff and public stuff. The thing that I always do, oftentimes, it is just private with my friends, but on the internet, it's oftentimes I make the joke first, which I think is something that you were doing too, Jessica, about like, well, I, look funny in this outfit, or I, whatever it is that you're kind of like, I'm calling out the joke before you can. Mm-hmm. I'm already laughing. 100%. So it's not going to be say that like, oh, your hair looks weird today, because I've already said, guys, look how ridiculous my hair is. Yeah, so that's self-deprecating humor, I think is always fun. So that's a way that I kind of protect myself on the internet. Yeah, and I think it's just keeping that wall between private so that you can feel safer. And it is sad that we have to feel like it's about safety and trying to keep yourself safe. And I don't know that men necessarily feel that way. I would be interested to know if, does Curtis have this sort of separation between personal and public, or does he just sort of feel like, well, I can just do anything I want to online?
I'm coming in. I do maintain a separation, but mine isn't out of safety. Mine is out of interest in branding. So it's coming from a completely different place.
Yeah.
My Facebook profile is not public, but it's also not something that I keep strangers off of if I can qualify them. You know what I mean? So if they've got enough mutual friends, but I don't really know them, sure, why not? That'll be fine. If they're complete strangers, but like they've commented nicely, or they follow the YouTube channel, or they've commented on Twitter, like I can be very open about that kind of stuff. Now, it has affected how I treat my Facebook pages. My fan page gets exclusive things that never go on the public page. So the newest stuff, the new releases go out there, et cetera, et cetera. But the public page also has, my personal page has its own unique things. Like that's where you're going to see the Frankie pictures. That's where you're going to see anything like that. But now I curate my Facebook page so dramatically that, and it's probably bad to put this out there in the world because it does destroy some of the magic, but who cares? It's not like authentic Curtis. It's public Curtis. And it's the same.
Well, and that's kind of all of the internet in a lot of ways. Like, even people on their private Facebook pages, or not, even amongst your friends, like I'm curating what I'm putting out in terms of, the photos of the family and stuff like that. Like I'm thinking about these. I'm not just posting everything, and I'm maybe not posting that I am having a bad day or something. Like, there's internet self definitely happens, and there's off internet self. And I think there's certainly been tons of articles written about how people are on the internet a lot and maybe not posting as much, are watching other people's feeds about like, oh, this person's doing great, look how wonderful their life is, and like, why can't my life be as great as their life? And then they get depressed and down on themselves because you see this sort of glamorized thing going on Facebook, and you get upset because you have that, whereas really nobody has that. Like everybody's self-selecting the things that they put on. Yeah, it's a highlight reel, exactly.
Oh, you know what, Rene, I've got you muted. Sorry, I'm trying to unmute you. It'll just take a second. I got to do it in the control room now. There you go.
Yeah, you're back. Thank you. So I think that Jessica and I both try to be pretty authentic online. And I don't know if you've received this, Jessica, but especially in the more early days, and I've kind of stopped being as authentic because I got really tired of some of the feedback I got, which was if I could post 20 happy posts in a row and then post one where I was upset or ranty or sad or anything like that. And instantly everyone would be like, you're so negative. Like, and I would also get some support, but like I would get these weird, like, oh my gosh. Rah, rah. And, I don't know if they were only seeing those in their feed for some reason, because, you never know what exactly they're seeing because Facebook has all these algorithms and stuff. But like, so I just kind of got to the point where I was like, well, I want to be authentic because everyone's talking about how everybody's so fake and they're not ever talking about the real stuff. And I'm talking about the hard things that I struggle with, and okay, it's just not worth it. And so I kind of now really just post pictures of my dog, and
because everybody likes those.
Yeah, and I mention funny stories that happen or something, or like some uplifting positive thing or whatever. But I do try to still stay fairly authentic in that I don't only post good pictures of myself. Like on occasion I'll post some no makeup-y ones, or and I try to kind of keep it real that way, because I do think that it's beneficial to society if we all kind of see, if we're going to be sharing so much if
Yeah.
we share both.
Yeah.
I think that's good, especially for women, but I think just across the board. And so I do think that. And you asked a question, Curtis, and I didn't see what it was, and now it's gone.
Any advice for women or girls who are getting started in the industry?
Oh, advice. I will leave the other two girls to start with that because I just talked for quite a bit. So if you guys have advice, go ahead and start.
I would say I wrote down a couple things. The only things I would say, maybe this is because I've just been reading and listening to Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. But basically, create. Like, make things, go out and do it, and nurture your creativity. If you're a painter, paint. If you're a writer, write. If you're a videographer, videography.
Film
Things. Yeah, thank you. You know, because that's what you love to do, and your love of that and your passion for it will come through, and just get it out there and make things, and don't. She talks, I'm not finished with the book yet, but she talks about how other people's reactions are their own thing. That's not, has nothing to do with you. They'll have whatever reaction they have to it, and that's on them. That's not on you. So don't, like, it's really hard, but try not to worry about what the reaction is going to be, and just keep creating and making things. Because I think you're going to learn. You're going to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And it's going to get better. You're going to feel better. Cause I know I've gotten positive comments on Schloerbits, and that's been great. But mostly it's just the fact that, like, oh, I'm making things, and I'm actually can do it, and I can make it from start to finish and put it out there. And it's, but also, so in case you have to deal with the comment section, which I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had, anything bad happen in comment sections so far. But I know people who have, like, very successful people who are out there who have millions of fans, and then, but their comment section can be varied, and you just can't do it. You just can't go down the rabbit hole. You cannot read it. And so I would say, have a good support group. Have friends who are doing the same things that you're doing, or who like the things that you're doing, and who understand that. And also, I would say, as much as family is great, and things, but family they're civilians, so they don't necessarily know as much about the industry and what is going on in the industry, and how, the fact that you didn't get that job that you went out for, it doesn't mean that you're a horrible, worthless actor. It just means, that could be a really good step for you in terms of then continually being called into that room. And so your actor friends know that, and they understand that, like, wow, you've been into that casting office 17 times. That's amazing. Like, they love you. Clearly you're obviously, a good person for them. But your family might be sitting there going, what's wrong with you? That you really, like, so have a support group, and have a support group that understands the business that you're in, the insiders, I would say.
It's great advice. What more do I need to say? I everything she said, and yes, start with the craft. Do it because you love it. Do it because it gives you energy. It is what you are made to do. Create, play the piano, sing as much as you can, dance as much as you can, and start there. Then when all of the clutter starts working its way in, when the fear of, I can't do this until I lose 10 pounds. I can't do this because this. I can't because that. I'm not her. I'm not her. I'm not her. Find ways to navigate your way through that with either support groups, with your own versions of self-care, whatever that is, so that you can continue to love that part of yourself, and give it a hug and say, I know that this is just my clutter. I'm going to put this over there. Okay, I'm going to go do my art now, because it's going to be there. You can't ignore it, because then it'll just lay dormant and rear its ugly head. So yeah, support, and finding a way to navigate your way through that, and to always come back to the art and to your own self-worth, I think is wildly important. Yeah, find what it is. Find what it is and attack it head on. For me, it's writing. So there it is. Renee?
I agree with both of you ladies. I would say my best advice would come from my own experience, which is just to not listen to the people who aren't in the business. They may have well-meaning, they may mean well, but they don't know. They just don't know. Yeah. But there's also people in the business who are jerks. So you have to really find your tribe of similar, like-minded people in your niche of the industry. I also think too, it's very important to stay true to who you are and not try to be like anybody else. Because you just are never going to be. And they say this in many different, like, this advice is given to, like, you know, people graduated from high school, like, stay true to you. But yeah, especially in the arts, I think. I mean, I think that is good advice for everyone. Stay true to who you are. Be happy with who you are. Like, really be the best you can be. But in the arts, you are going to bring something that nobody else brings. And if you try to be someone else, then you're not finding the people who are going to connect with you or get the most out of you, and you're kind of keeping that from the world. And you have to just bring what you have to whatever you're creating. Yes, create, and don't try to emulate someone else. Like, create your stuff, do what you want to do. And yeah, you'll find those people that, you know, other people's opinions are their opinions, and yeah, it has nothing to do with them. The other second part of that would be, I have a little mantra when I'm trying to think of when I'm scared of doing something. I think I found it in a book called Simple Abundance, like years ago. I don't really remember exactly. So if it's not that, please nobody yell at me or anything. I don't know exactly, but it's dream, do, detach. So you have the dream, you put it into motion, you have to do it to get it done. Just get it done. And then as soon as it's out there, you put it out there and you just move on to the next dream and the next, because you have to be detached from the reactions that you're going to get, because some people might love it, some people might not. But you have to do it. So you dream it, you do it, you detach from it. So try not to take things personally, you know, especially in this industry. It's really hard because it really does feel like they're judging you personally. But, you know, just know that some people are going to love you, some people aren't. It's really just like life. And we put so much importance on it and being accepted and being loved in this industry. And I think as actors, there's a lot of psychological stuff that we could say about why we crave this so much and want to be accepted and loved so much and have that tangible proof. Look, they put me in this and they love me and they gave me good reviews and it's all great and people like me. They really like me, you know. But you have to just try to not aim for making people to like you. I have made that mistake, so I'm saying this now as someone who has gone down that path. It does not work. You're never going to win them all over. They're never going to understand exactly where you're coming from. Like, don't even try. Just do you and be happy with it. And the right doors will open. When you're true to yourself, the right things come to you. And so I think that's the best advice I can give.
Thank you very much, Rene. Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you very much, Amy. We have killed an hour. This has been a fantastic discussion. I've watched as our viewer numbers have gone up during the live feed. So excellent work. I hope this was educational for everybody. I hope you enjoyed this one. I started getting Twitter messages and Facebook messages that I know people are watching live and they really enjoyed this conversation.
It's all trolls.
I know, right? Right. They're like, who are these ladies? What's going on with that? But we are going to do more female-centric conversations. I look forward to having you guys involved in those again. But before we go, where can we find you on the internet? Rene, I'm going to start with you so I can just unmute you.
Where can they find us on the internet so they can come and troll us? You can find me on Twitter at Rene Bordelon and on Instagram at Rene's Revolution, and my public Facebook page, which is Rene Bordelon Artist or something. I don't know, but it's the public one that you can just like the page, not friend request me, unless I know you.
Okay, I'll go.
Amy, go ahead.
So yeah, schloerbits.com. The Chiron is It just points you to my YouTube page. That's fun. I also have a face. No, don't go that. I haven't updated that in years. Schloerbits is also on Twitter. Yeah, find Schloerbits. They're fun.
Yay. If you want to see funny little pictures of my performing adventures, that's on Instagram at Jessica Hayes Music. And if you want to read anything further about how I attack my inner demons, you can go to www.yoursaddragon.com.
Thank you very much, ladies. Next week, we are going to be discussing survival job versus the dream. That's next week. I will let you know later this week if it's going to be a Thursday discussion or a Sunday discussion, although these Sundays seem to be going very well. So I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As usual, you can go to curtisanderson.com to find out everything that Rene and I are doing. And just as an update from last week, yes, the merchandise train is on the run. I just had a conversation with one of our artists Thursday, had a conversation with her, and Frankie-specific merchandise will be available soon on the web store.
Yay, Frankie!
So thank you all for visiting with us and for watching. Again, you'll be able to find this on the YouTube page, and you will find the links to what these fine ladies are doing in the description down below. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.